Dewey Freeman, how are you this morning?
I am extremely well. How about yourself,
I
Monday?
love the way you added the word extremely. I'm Mark Sylvester. We're the Elder Council. It's Saturday morning in our world, probably not Saturday morning in your world. I love reading from people who listen to the show while they're on a walk or they're doing their exercises or they're
Mm,
driving to work. And we're a great listen. I don't know that we're a great watch to watch a couple old white guys, but we're a damn good listen.
yeah, but we look weird. We look weird enough to be a little bit interesting.
We look age appropriate.
There you go.
We're not trying to be 45. We're not trying to, we're not doing any of those things. We're living into our gray.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be 45. At 29, I don't want to try and be 45. I mean, come on, Mark.
I loved that. I told my doc, for those who may not have heard this, Dewey went into the doctor, and maybe if we didn't record it, and the doctor said, "How old are you?" And you said 29. And he said, and he said, "No, that's where you are in your head." And he says, "No, how old's your knee?"
Yeah, exactly.
So that's gotten a laugh from my
85.
doctors. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Which leads somewhat tangentially into what our subject today is about. Are we as aware as we think we are? Question mark.
Mm,
Because we've had we've had a lot of running themes, and one of them is around the only way we're going to get better, the only way we're going to have this continuous and never-ending improvement is through awareness. Yet our experience, even with myself, as I was reading about this morning, there were like these four tests, like answer these questions. If you get two of them, then you're not as self-aware as you thought. And I don't want to share that guy's work. I want us to come up with our own work. However, I had two on the list, and I think I'm as fucking aware as you're going to get. And obviously, I'm not, which is why we need to talk about it today, sir.
that is amazing because I know you really well. And it's like I would have guessed you would have gotten either three or four, whatever those questions are. It was like,
Well, it's the
uh,
if you answer yes, that's you're affirming your lack of awareness. And one of them was that you go through the whole day and you look back on it and then you don't really know what you did.
uh,
And I'm speaking for myself. I journal every morning, and I had made a decision to on December 1st I was going to time track, and because at the end of the day I had some goals for myself and I would hit one or two, but I couldn't remember them, or I didn't know what I did, and I was like, okay, that's bullshit. And so, but guess what? It's the 4th of the month, and have I made a list of the stuff I actually did? So it's actual versus budget. My budget was my time allocation. My actual is what I actually did. No, sir.
mm,
I'm freely copying. And that's what got me thinking about, plus, someone saying if you lack self-awareness, you won't know at the end of the day what the fuck you did. So I think I'm probably not the Lone Ranger.
that would be, I'm sure, completely true. So would you go back and walk through that, the budget versus,
So
go
I
a little bit slower.
so I think everyone knows been an entrepreneur since I was 16, built and start many businesses. I'm all about doing that. And so I'm all about this notion of forecasting, budgeting, doing a pro forma budget, meaning I'm going to forecast out into the future that which I do not know, how many people are going to buy, from where, how much is going to cost me to deliver that, whatever it is.
Hmm.
So that's my budget. You could do a home family budget, but you do the same thing with a business. You figure out
Sure.
income and expenses. So I said, and then you have a column right next to it, which is the actual. How much did I really spend on office supplies, right? And then you start to fine tune. After a couple of months, you can start to fine tune your budgets. And if your business has been around for a few years, that process is pretty dialed. So I thought, well, why don't I do that with my time management? So I'm, I, I'm doing this project called time hacking, where I'm trying, how do I get more juice out of my own orange every day? How do I get
Mm-hmm.
more time, right? And it's through this intentional planning I call time hacking. And in doing that, that's my budget. I'm going to spend 2 hours in this, and I'm going to write for an hour, and I'm going to whatever it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this project is in it, and there's the 30 minutes after that I edit and all that kind of stuff. But what I don't have in that was the actual, what did I actually spend doing that? So that the next week I could go in and say, okay, I can adjust. I allotted too much time, or I didn't allot enough time. So that's where
Got it.
actual budget comes through. And when you are not employed by someone who's in control of your time, I'm in control of my time. So
Right.
I can do that. Most people aren't, right? So someone else is controlling their time. So for that 8 or 10 hours where you're not in control, just put that. But I would argue that within that 8 or 10 hours where you're working for someone else, it depending on where you are on the freedom scale is the very bottom. You're told what to do and when to do it. The next level up is you're told what to do, you figure out when to do it. The third level up is you know what to do, you know when to do it, you tell the boss it got done. Level 4, which is the highest level, is you know what to do, when to do it, and you don't need to tell the boss because he knows it'll get done. So those are the
Wow.
4 levels of freedom. So where are you, listener, operating in that 1, 2, 3, or 4? And if you're at 3, where you know what has to be done, you know when to do it, then coming up with a time management strategy for how you attack time would probably be a good idea. And it's through that that we also battle another thing, which is the sense of overwhelm, right? I have so much to do. Okay, great. If you have so much to do, make a list. Let me see the list. Let's put some time. What's your budget? How long do you think it's going to take to do those things? Oh, you have 22 hours of work and you only have 6 hours of actual time. So that's where time hacking comes in, which is
Got it.
how do we do this? And guess what? There's 18 billion people who've written books on every way to do this that you can imagine. I've read 1 billion of them, and
That's
and
impressive.
0 of them have stuck.
Really?
Zero. Zero. So the only one that is stuck is from the Getting Things Done methodology, done by David Allen, and the guy who ran David's company for 20 years is one of our clients, and he has his own thing, and he's abstracted it to say, of all that stuff, what's the one next action? In fact, I have it written right here. It's the only sticky note I have on the computer. What's the one next thing I need to do? Then what's the one next thing I have to do? And this tracks back to my TED talk really well, which is once I figured that map out of all the things, take a step and commit to the second step. And in that, you will find forward momentum. So all of this goes back to what we're talking about, which is how aware are we of what steps we need to take? Did we take them? Were they in the right direction? How did you feel about taking them? All that stuff. So that's there. 15 minutes later, he shuts up.
Wow. I just learned a huge amount. So thank you. I think we're done.
And that's our show, ladies and gentlemen.
All right. So, can I respond to that?
Yeah, please. I'd love you to.
Well, one of my questions is this is a way tangent. Do you know on a Myers-Briggs what Myers-Briggs profile you are?
You will be very, very interested to know that I wrote about that exact thing this morning.
No shit.
Yeah. So so there's Myers-Briggs, there's the Enneagram, there's social intelligence. There's a bunch of these things to measure oneself.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorites is called the Lucier color test,
Mm-hmm.
done by a professor in Germany, Lucier. The first one I ever was experienced with when I was 18 years old. And I wrote today, and I put an action item to uh, do a compendium of all of those studies I've taken and get them all into one spot and start to figure out what the threads are between all those. Because there's another one called howtofascinate.com, which
Mm-hmm.
comes up with 49 different archetypes. There's all of that stuff. I love all that. So back to, do I know what Myers-Briggs is? That was a long yes, all capital letters answer.
Do you know what your profile is?
No, that's why I'm building this community. I know it has 4 letters, and everybody I talk to, they go, well, I'm a da 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 NF, whatever it is. I think there's an E in mine. The first one's an E, I think.
I
But
think,
again, I want to be more conversant with that.
yeah, I would make a guess, and I'll bet I would be 90% right, but we'll hold that for another show.
Yeah, I know I'm a 7 on the Enneagram, and what happens is you do a test in any one of these, and you have to check your do a good test behavior at the door and be as honest as you humanly can, because no one else is going to see it. And I love reading the how the fuck did you? Yeah, guess what? Because there's only 8 types of people on the planet. We all fit into that in one way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go back to the time thing, because there was a
Here's
bunch in there.
yeah, and here's why I asked that is because as you were talking, I'm going, yeah, you just pick one thing and do it. That if you have 22 hours worth of whatever to do and you have 6 hours, the more time you spend on being overwhelmed and worrying about not getting the 22 hours worth of stuff done, the less you're going to get done.
That's a rational mind conclusion.
And
Overwhelm is irrational. So you
would,
have to attack the emotion.
well, so here's the next step, and this is part of the awareness, is when we overwhelm ourselves, and I'm saying that purposely, when we overwhelm ourselves, because we're the one making the list, we're the
Yes.
one somewhere, somehow telling us that we're supposed to do this. Many people make that list and they tie their worth to getting that list done.
Oh, okay. Hadn't considered that. I don't have that experience with that, but I feel that.
Oh, many people. It's like, well, if I don't get those 22 things done, then I'm not a good person.
Wow.
I'm not a good man. I'm not a good husband. I'm not a good father. I'm not a good lover. I'm not a blah, 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 blah.
Wow. So why is it that I don't put any judgment on the list?
You want to know the truth?
Yeah.
Is because
You're
you're an
going to
adult.
say you can't handle the truth.
You want the truth? You can't handle the truth.
That's Aaron Sorkin at his best.
Yes.
So
here's the deal.
What's the truth about? You said there's a truth about me in that.
Well, the truth is on a developmental level, we learn how to separate personhood, excuse me, personhood and behavior between the ages of 2 and 4. What I mean by separation of personhood and behavior is that process where we don't judge ourselves or set our own value about ourselves by what we do. In other words, the 3-year-old throws their oatmeal on the floor and the parent goes either bad boy or bad girl. That's one possibility. And there are many iterations of that. Or the parent says, sweetie, I love you, and it's not okay to throw your own mail in.
Right. And we've had that conversation because that example
Yes.
is one that I get. So somewhere between 2 and 4, I got the second one, which is why I don't have that judgment attachment
Right.
too.
Either that, or you've done enough work to
Yeah.
recover from those kind of messages. So when you go, wow, I have 22 hours worth of work and I have 6 hours, you're not you're not having an internal process going, if I don't get those 22 hours done, I won't be loved. If I don't get those 22 hours done, I won't be the 22 things done, I won't be all of those things. When we base our self-worth on what we do fully versus on who we are, we will struggle.
So let me test that for just a second because I'm thinking that there is some pressure to perform to get those things done, and the pressure in my case is out of integrity, courtesy, integrity, perseverance, self-control, and indomitable spirit as my tenets. The one of integrity says if I said I was going to do something by a certain time, then it's on me to do that. And it's not about worth or anything. It's about being in integrity with my word and being courteous to them, so that I haven't induced stress or anxiety in the person who is waiting for that thing for me to do. Right? That would be thinking it through a couple of steps. If I'm right, would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. And there's an underlying piece of
Mm.
that. If you have made the commitment that you will do something that when you look at it, you go, I know this is going to take 6 hours. And you say, I'll do it in 2 hours because you want to impress somebody, you want someone else to think that you're a good person. Then you're setting yourself up.
Wow, again, I don't do that either. So good, yes, but I'm sure people listening are thinking that the reason I would accomplish a task under budget is because I want other people to think highly of me.
Exactly.
Wow.
If I have a pile of dirt that I am going to move by hand, and let's say, I mean, thank goodness I don't have to move 15 tons of dirt by hand. But if I have a pile of dirt I need to move by hand, and I go, yeah, I can do that in an hour. That's where the integrity drops off, because I'm not saying what the truth is of, well, it'll really take 15 hours to move 15 tons of dirt by hand.
So I like this debate because if you're moving the dirt for yourself, it doesn't matter because you're at the top of the freedom scale. You know what to do. I need to move the dirt.
Right
You know
on.
when to do it. I'm going to do it now. And the boss just knows the dirt. The boss in this case is you, knows the dirt will be moved. So there's no stakes on if you don't remove the dirt.
Right.
Unless there are stakes for you because I got to move the dirt because I'm building a swimming pool and that 15 tons of dirt got to go someplace.
Correct.
Fair enough. So is it possible that the person who's I'm going to say they grossly overestimated the time, or they purposely sandbagged the time? That's a different integrity issue.
Yeah,
But let's
that's a
say
different piece.
that's a different issue. But let's say they said, "Hey, I think it's going to take 2 hours, but I'm really going to grind and I'm going to get it done in 30 minutes because I want the client to think better of me," which is, I think, what we were saying. So now I'm not as high on the freedom scale as I thought. I'm only at level 3. I knew what to do. I knew when to do it. And then I told them when it was done because I wanted a reward. I wanted some little attaboy for doing it.
Right. Right. And exactly. And where I started speaking about this was in response to you talking about integrity. If you say you're going to get something done by such and such time, I mean, that's something that is a value for me too. If I say that I can do X, Y, and Z by such and such time, I want to follow through on that. That's a big deal for me. But if I say I can get such and such done by such and such time, but I know that that's impossible because there are physical limitations to certain things,
You're out of integrity.
that's where I'm out of integrity at the foundation of what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And that's where all of the awareness comes in. That's where all of that peace comes in of what is really real here. What am I aware of? Like I can move 15 tons of dirt, for instance, with my Bobcat in 30 minutes. But I cannot move 15 tons of dirt by hand with a shovel, putting it in a wheelbarrow in 30 minutes. So if I tell you I can do that, that's where the integrity falls apart.
So we're part of what we're saying then around, I'm going to see if I bring us back to self-awareness, is we don't live in isolation. And some of us are, and we want community so bad. So when we say we're going to do something, the chances are the end result of that thing is impacting someone in my community, my mate, my boss, my coworker, my employee who is waiting on me to do something. I'm a bottleneck for something, or it's just me. I really want to work in the garage, but I can't do that until I clean the garage to be able to add the thing I want to do. So there's always it's almost like, I don't like the word always, but most often that action you need to take is either the beginning or the end of someone else's action.
Right, that we're part of a larger system.
Right, right. And that's the awareness. There we go. There we go, doctor.
Yeah.
I'm, and the self-deprecating in me would say, I'm just a cog in the wheel. I'm dust in the wind. I'm, my efforts are nothing. Yet in my little private universe here, I'm the big cog, right? And I know there's a lot of cogs around it. So I don't want to deminimize myself. I want to live into that and have the awareness of exactly how big my gear is.
Right. Well, and we are never in isolation. Even in our own language.
That's pretty strong.
That is pretty strong. Even when we're physically alone and we're thinking or we're writing as if we're talking to somebody. We're thinking as if we're talking to somebody. Let's say after we get off of this show, both of us have things that we have planned on doing. What I know that I will do, because I do it every Saturday, is I have a dialogue going in my head about what went right, what went wrong. And I don't even look at it as what wrong. What could we have done better? What was fluid? How did you and I connect? But I'm always doing that literally as if you're walking up the hill with me. My arms around you, and it's like, oh, yeah, what do you think of this? And oh, yeah. I mean, all of that. I think you might call it, many people, we would call it an after action review. I do that informally. But we're never alone.
That's a very heartening thought. So actually, it's very comforting is the word I wanted. It's a comforting thought. So when we're stuck in a story, I like that one, stuck in a story. Yeah. I'm a big fan of alliteration, as our listener knows.
We should do a show on stuck in a story. What story are you stuck in?
I think we did a couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. In fact, I found I send the back catalog. I send specific episodes in the back catalog to people who said, "Hey, there was a chunk in there that was really good that addressed
Yeah.
that thing," which got me to thinking, listener. Now this is a little inside baseball of taking and going back. We're on like show 24 or 25, and going back and cataloging the themes and the sub themes within each one of those. And the visualization in my head is there's a stack of books in the library. Remember libraries? Remember walking into a library? So there's a stack that's just labeled the elders, and then there's the subjects along one side, and there's a book for each episode, and within that there are the books. So if we look at what would the complete elders include, right? So a
Right.
year from now, 2 years now, the complete elders would include topics of, whatever complete means, whatever we say it means. And so right now I'm thinking, where are the gaps? Where do we not have books written yet? We know what to say about them, but what are those books that are to be written? And so that's a project, I've a little side project I'm working on. So listener, if there's something you'd like to hear us talk about, please drop in the notes in the comments. We'll get a book on the shelf.
Yeah, we'll get it on the shelf. And also be aware that every time we speak to each other, every time we do a show, we're always going, yeah, we had an aspect of this in this show, we had an aspect of this in this show, that the shows never stand alone either.
Right.
We
My visualization of that is you and I in the real world, if we were sitting across from each other, and I had like I could just use my Jedi Force to just hold my hand up, and the book would come out, opened to that chapter of that thing we were talking about. I could imagine at the end of our talk, we could visualize that there would be 10 books opened up to some part in them that was referenced to that.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, so that's just a great hyperlinking task that I'm going to put out onto TaskRabbit and have someone do once we write the book.
Isn't that amazing?
For more info on this, listen to chapter 13, 9 minutes in. So
Isn't it?
how could
So
someone
crazy cool.
how could someone do a little test? Like, I love testing things, right? I love scoreboards and how are we doing it. So far, objective was to kind of understand where we were in our own self-awareness, and and set some intention that I'd like to be more self-aware, whatever that means. And then understanding the metric would be how I would test it. And the value to me is we've been talking about the value of self-awareness. What's the test? Someone who's listening right now could write this down and do this, and actually put a little judgment on it, say accurately, this is where you are, dude, and this is how you could get better.
My thoughts went to two places, and this may very well. Ooh, I just got it.
Chills.
Right.
Didn't I get chills right then?
You and I were speaking about, and if I understood it right, what you spoke about was there some level of awareness is that when we look back on our day, can we remember what we did?
Yeah.
My process is, so I'll talk about our shows. When we click, which we most often do, most of what comes out from a place of unconscious competence.
Yes.
For me and for you. For the listener, just a quick review is it's unconscious incompetence, competence conscious incompetence, conscious competence, and unconscious competence. When we get to the unconscious competence, we know it in our bones. When I do self-reflection about what happened in the show or in my day when I'm working with people, when I'm in that mode of unconscious competence, I oftentimes don't remember what I did because it came from my bones, not my brain. What I tend to remember are those places where I feel like I tripped up, where I didn't.
Conscious incompetence, occasions of conscious incompetence.
Right. So a measurement, and what that leads to is that oftentimes what we do is we remember what we didn't do well.
Yeah.
Or as well as we
Correct.
wanted.
Yeah.
To expand awareness and to really see where we're at, we need to remember, one, what we didn't do well, or review that. We also need to round that out to make that whole. We need to actually remember what we did well. And then I think that we need to remember what's in between those two things.
So this gets to where I think journaling, if it's an individual effort or if it's a joint action, you and I working together, it's been my experience for this concept was introduced to me 5 years ago by Lieutenant Colonel Scott Mann, because he talked about how the military does this, and I've abstracted that to what we're talking about now. It's what went well, and I write every single thing that went well. And most of the time, to your point, we don't focus on that. So I start there. Hey, what went well?
Exactly.
Get all that. And then what needs work to that point, which is the conscious incompetence. The list is probably a third to a quarter the size of what went well, by the way, in my experience, because I have pages of these where we can look at it, because the next time we're going to do that thing, throw an event, do a workshop, give a talk, do whatever, we'll look back and say, well, what went well? Just make sure we do that. What needed work? Oh, those are gone now because we've already figured those things out. And the last one, sometimes there's only one entry or two entries is what didn't work. Like, don't do that anymore. Don't try to open with a joke. Don't ever try to do that, by the way, listener. Don't ever consciously open with a joke. It never works. But what didn't work, like that kind of stuff. Yes, go.
When we only look at what didn't work or what we should do better, our nervous system goes into a protective process. Unless we're also looking at what we did well.
Yeah.
When our nervous system goes into a self-protective process, that shuts our brain off. That shuts our process off. That shuts who we are off. When we're shut off, we're aware of some things because we're in a protective process, but it limits our awareness, our general awareness.
I'm going to yes and the crap out of that and connect a dot to something we've said many, many times. I'm pulling out 3 or 4 books and opening them up, which is for us to create intimacy and build stronger relationships, we have to use the term I've learned from you, create openings. We create openings for those things to happen. And what's the opposite of the word open? Shut.
Protection. Yes.
So you just said, if I'm shutting myself up, I haven't created an opening internally for me to look at those things to get better. So don't do that. As Kimberly's Japanese sword master, she would make a mistake, and all he does, he just looks at her and goes, "Don't do that. Don't do that."
Yes, sir.
Yeah, as I'd say, don't do that. I think we've covered this really nicely, and I'd love everybody to kind of set a little goal for themselves on this awareness, because I think we only get better the more aware we are, both the good, bad, and the ugly, right? That's kind of what we're talking about, the good, bad, and the ugly. Bad is don't do it. Ugly is we can make pretty it up, and the good is the good. Dewey Freeman, my friend, thank you so much. It's another quality conversation.
Thank you very much.